So Active Directory, we've got a couple different steps here that need to be done in order to join Active Directory. It's a two-step process within VAST. So we'll talk some of the requirements are here, which are a little different than what some of the other requirements might typically be in other platforms. But typically, we're going to need a user that has join rights. This is going to be a user that has administrator rights to do that. This may be a domain admin user or something like that. But basically, somebody has join rights. It could also be a user that has delegated access rights to a particular pre-created computer object. That's common in some environments where the network administrator or the Active Directory administrator will go through and create a computer object prior to VAST coming on, and will delegate that to a specific user, so they don't have to provide domain admin rights to create an object there. But we need to have a user. We need to know what the user is that can actually do the join, can go through and access that object or create a new object there. We'll also need, at least today, a separate service account. This is going to be a Windows. Account that's there. It just needs to be a read-only account. Should not have password expiration, and really only needs limited rights in AD. We really just need this to go through and use this for supplemental group lookups. This is something that eventually the VAST will go through and eliminate the need for, but and just rely strictly on the computer account to do these kind of lookups. But today we require a separate service account. So we can use either define the full DN for this, or use the UPN, so user at domain, if we use SASL for configuration for this. But we really need to have this so that there isn't a password expiration on this for it. If there is a situation where this account becomes locked or this account has a password expiration, user lookups will begin to fail for any new access that's coming in, or if we have to go through and refresh cached access information. So it's really important that this account doesn't change very much. And then we'll also need the name of the domain. So I need to know, well, what is the Active Directory domain we're going to go through and do. So this, and when we do the join, it's going to be done in two steps. First off is just going to be the initial configuration, where we're going to validate a few things, so we can see the DCs, we can use this, we can connect up with this service account for that, and then there's the actual join, where we'll utilize this administrator account to do the join. So let's kind of walk through some of the steps here for this. So with this, we can use up to 8 Active Directory providers can be on here. Again, these Active Directory providers can be used by multiple tenants for that, but we're going to configure 1 per tenant. But we can support up to 8 different Active Directory providers for this. So we will go through, and we any of these AD environments can either be part of the same forest, or they can be completely independent of each other. The requirement is that any of the domain controllers, any of those domains, have to be resolvable and accessible and routable from the VAST management network, at least for today as a VAST 5.2. So if we want to go through, we want to create a new Active Directory connection, we'll go into Active Directory, we're going to user management, Active Directory, we'll say create AD, and we're going to be presented with some basic fields here. Basic fields are going to be the ones you'd expect. Here's the domain that we're going to go through and join. We need to provide a computer account name that we're going to use. So this computer account can be the cluster name. It could be really anything that you want it to be, but it has to be, we need to define the computer account that we wish to have created within Active Directory. This would be, if we're talking about straight Windows terms, this would be kind of the equivalent of what is the workstation account that we're doing the join. What is your workstation named when you join Active Directory? That is the computer object there. But within VAST, we're joining the cluster itself, so we can set this as we need to. If we wish to specify the organizational unit, meaning where do we want to have this object placed, we can go through and specify that. This applies to if we're creating new objects. If we're using existing objects, we can just leave this blank and we'll find the object out there wherever it happens to be. And then if we need to specify a port, generally we don't need to specify a port. For this, it's very rare that we actually have to specify a specific port to use. for it, we could specify that here. So normally just leave this blank or just leave it in the grayed out state, which means that we're not specifying anything. And then here we would specify our bind DN that we're going to go through and use in the password. So again, this bind DN can either be the LDAP syntax for the user that's doing the bind DN, or it can be a user principal entry and then their password for this service account. If you happen to not be sure of what the bind DN is for the user, you can use a DS query command to do this. You can also do a who am I command /fqdn to get that full bind DN. You can go through and look this up within the attributes for those there. So you can get that information that way if you wish to. Again, like OpenLDAP, we can do custom attribute mapping for this. These attributes will default to what the RFC 2307 attributes are defined for Active Directory for that, as well as the computer objects or the object types within Active Directory to go through and do these lookups. So as you'll see here, the UID or the username for this will default to the SAM account name. And we're going to search for different things using SAM account name for this, but look for UID number and GID number attributes to get those there. So again, we'll break down kind of a breakdown here of what each one of these are for this. Very similar again to what the OpenLDAP ones are, just using different attributes because Active Directory is defined a little bit different than OpenLDAP.